All right, today we're going to dive into some seriously powerful ideas on how to build that unshakable self-belief we all want. This is really about breaking through those invisible walls you've put up for yourself so you can finally start moving toward your biggest goals. So let's get into it. I want to kick things off with a question, and I want you to be totally honest with yourself. What is the single most dangerous, most limiting lie that you tell yourself, maybe even every day? Just think about it for a second. Because for most of us, it's this one right here. I'm not ready. Oh man, we've all said it. I'm not ready for that promotion. Not ready to start that business. Not ready to have that tough conversation. We're all waiting for this magical feeling of readiness to just appear out of nowhere. But here's a scary thought. What if it never does? Because here's the absolute truth of it. Ready isn't some feeling you wait around for. It's a decision you make. It's the simple choice to take one step forward, even when you're not sure, even when you're a little bit scared. So that brings us right to our first big challenge. We have to confront the lie we tell ourselves. You know, before you can build something new and strong, you have to tear down that old, shaky foundation. And that always starts with looking that inner critic right in the eye. Let's try a little thought experiment here. Imagine for a second that you took that critical eye you sometimes have for other people and you turned it inward. What if you questioned your own habits, your own excuses, with that same level of intensity? All of a sudden, those excuses start to sound kind of flimsy, don't they? And what's really fascinating here is how this inner critic actually operates. It's the classic armchair quarterback, right? Always analyzing everybody else's game, but never actually stepping onto the field itself. It's an expert on every problem except its own, all while ignoring the one thing it can actually control, your next move. So how do we start to fight back? Well, that leads us right into section 2, the mindset of a winner. This is where we stop playing defense and start forging the internal armor we need to not just get by, but to actually win. And this whole thing starts with redefining a word we throw around all the time: confidence. Forget thinking of it as some kind of feeling. The source material here gives us a much more powerful way to look at it. Confidence is simply the willingness to try. That's it. It's an action. Every single time you try, you're proving to yourself that you can handle whatever happens next, win or lose. And this slide just perfectly lays out the two different paths we can all go down. You've got the finite mindset, which sees life as a game you have to win, where the whole point is to beat other people. But then there's the infinite mindset. And that's not a game you play, it's a life you live. The focus shifts from being the best in the world to being the best for the world, lifting other people up with you. So here it is. This is the absolute key, the one thing to really walk away with from this section. It all comes back to what you believe. The stuff you want to achieve on the outside is impossible until you have that conviction on the inside. You have to believe it's actually possible for you before you can even take the first step. But let's be real for a second. A powerful mindset is just the ticket to get in the door. It's essential, but it doesn't do the work for you. Which brings us to a really important question. What is the real price of greatness? This brings us to section 3, the unglamorous work of greatness. And let's be honest, this is the part nobody really likes to talk about. It isn't sexy. It's about two very simple but very hard things: repetition and sacrifice. First off, we need to completely dismantle a huge misconception. We all wait for motivation to strike us like lightning. But the source material is crystal clear on this. Motivation is a myth. It's a fair-weather friend. It shows up when it feels like it and disappears when things get tough. You can't build a life on something that unreliable. So what's the alternative? Discipline. If motivation is your flaky friend, discipline is your all-weather partner. It doesn't care if you're tired or discouraged or just not feeling it. It doesn't ask for your opinion. It just shows up and gets the job done. And this is broken down into 3 really simple, powerful pillars. First, you have to embrace repetition. Mastery isn't about doing 100 different things. It's about doing one thing 100 times. Second, make sacrifices. This means creating a to-don't list. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is say no. And third, the most important one of all, show up anyway. Do it when you're tired. Do it when you're discouraged. Just get it done. Okay, and this next point is absolutely crucial to really let sink in. Greatness is not built on the days you feel good. Anyone can put in the work when they're excited and everything's going their way. That's easy. But true greatness, the kind that lasts, is forged in those quiet moments. It's built on the days you're tired, you're frustrated, and you would rather be doing literally anything else, but you show up anyway. That one decision, repeated over and over, is what separates you from almost everyone else. And this idea challenges another modern myth, this obsession with balance. Look, legends didn't achieve what they did by living a perfectly balanced lifestyle. They did it through focused, obsessive seasons of intensity, so stop apologizing for being in your season. But all this work, all this sacrifice, it's gotta be for something, right? It has to mean something. And that takes us to our final section, finding your infinite purpose and learning to see the meaning not just at the finish line, but in the struggle itself. The source material frames this perfectly with the classic hero's journey. Think about it. Some big challenge comes along and disrupts your ordinary life. That's the call to adventure. Then you go on the journey, where you fight dragons, both inside your head and out in the world. But if you stick with it, you eventually triumph. And here's the most important part. You return with a story to share, a story that you lived. So when chaos inevitably hits your life, and it will, you have to remember this. It's not the end. When life burns things down, it creates an empty space. It creates fertile ground for you to rebuild something stronger, to grow into the person you were always supposed to become. And this all leads to a final, powerful truth. You are not just a passive victim of what happens to you. You are a force of nature in your own right. The storm may be raging, but so are you. So we end up right back where we started, but with a totally different question. Greatness is built in those quiet, thankless moments, when no one's clapping for you, when no one even knows you're trying. So the real question isn't if you're ready. You decide that. The real question is this. What are you willing to build when no one else is watching?